If you want to make 10K a month freelancing without a degree, this is the most realistic path. Forget all the shitty, unrealistic advice on YouTube, where someone's pushing a course, a mastermind, a cohort, and guarantees you to make 10K in the first month. This video will give you honest, real insight into choosing a path, setting a timeline, and managing expectations. So allow me to break this down with my shoddy video editing skills and my deep but somehow still nerdy sounding voice. This video will be broken down into 3 phases. The first phase is deciding what path to take. The second is learning how to do that job. The third is choosing how to sell and where to sell it. So I've tried many different ways to make money online. Some have been successful, but most have failed. You can see me documenting some of these prior ways in my older YouTube videos that I should probably hide or delete. What worked for me was freelancing and selling SEO and AI services, mainly on Upwork. I'm not saying this will work for everyone, but what I feel I can share from these insights is how to navigate different ways to make money online and how you can more quickly find a path that works for you to get started in freelancing and grow that freelancing into full-time income and a real business. So if you think freelancing on Upwork is a fit for you, I've recently opened my school community called Upwork Academy, where I go over the basics of everything on Upwork as far as setting up your profile, setting proposals, getting hired, and dealing with clients. This also includes 2 courses that go over SEO and AI, so you can learn this stuff and sell it to clients immediately. Finally, my last sales push. If you join the academy and don't get hired within the first 30 days, I'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. Now, last thing, if you can't understand this next point, there's no reason to watching this video any further. Even in today's make money online quick landscape, I personally don't believe there's anything you can do that will consistently make you 10K in under 6 months. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that if you're not making full-time income within the first 6 months or a year that you're falling behind. The problem with all this info online is that you think if you're not making real money very quickly, you often give up, which is one of the biggest pitfalls for someone starting a new business. Commit 2 full years to it and then see where you're at. I've said this before on this channel, but you should learn from someone who's only slightly ahead of where you are currently. This means they'll have real and recent knowledge of your current position and current goals. And even if you find someone to learn from, be prepared to make many mistakes along the way. For example, say you're learning jiu-jitsu for the first time and you're being taught how to do an arm bar. The coach spends 8 hours with you going over every single detail about arm bars, pressure, wedges, control, and you feel like you have a pretty good grasp. But you go to try it on a live partner and you immediately fail. So the thing is, no matter how comprehensive the instruction, you only truly learn something by doing it yourself and making your own mistakes and your own discoveries along the way. Plus, how can a mentor, teacher, or coach know every single question you might have? So the main takeaway here is don't spend too much online watching content. Just get started. Focus on the very next step to move your business forward. Don't focus on the next 20 or 30 things you have to do. And with that said, the 2 biggest differences between starting a business today and 30 or 40 years ago, we now have the ability to document starting a business in real time. Every single business needs content to grow credibility, and to get leads. So putting something in public is going to be key, and it's super simple to implement as you grow. Not only does it teach you many valuable skills along the way, but it also gives you the option to more easily sell to potential customers. The second biggest difference is that there's so much information available now that you can level up very fast, but also creates a trap, which makes you constantly consider switching businesses, models, or goals. So you end up doubting yourself and not committing and constantly jumping to the newest trend instead of building what you have already. Now onto this first phase of getting 10K as a freelancer. This is deciding what you're going to sell. What most career counselors don't teach you in high school or college is that you have to choose a job that you just really don't mind doing. Forget all the bullshit of if you find a job you love, you never work a day in your life, or find a job that you're passionate about. That's all bullshit. I don't believe any of it. I never did. Here are the top 5 niches that I think are still viable and a great place to start. First one is SEO. The second one is AI automation. This is currently blowing up, but who knows how long it's going to last. The third is lead gen. We're talking cold email, cold calling, Google ads, meta ads. The fourth is video editing, both long and short. And the fifth is social media marketing. So I recommend getting some experience with any one of those that you find interesting and get a true, honest interpretation of what it's going to be like selling those services day in and day out. And the second part is what most people fail to tell you about when they make these dumb little YouTube videos about making money online. This is how you should approach learning each of these jobs. First, every one of these jobs can be enhanced with the use of AI automation, so don't come at me saying that everyone should just do AI as a freelancer right now. These are all still viable even with AI booming as it is. Next are people who are far more intelligent and experienced in each of these types of jobs across YouTube, so I recommend doing a quick search and finding out who can provide you the most honest and real insight. So here's how I learn each of these 5. So first, SEO. Again, it's an area that's constantly changing due to AI, but I recommend taking a reputable course on SEO. You can learn the basics of on-page and off-page SEO in a long weekend. It is changing quickly, but there'll always be a need for it. Whether it's classic Google search, AI search, etc., there's always going to be a need to getting your site showing up quicker and easier across these platforms. So when you go to sell SEO on Upwork, you can always stretch your experience a bit and start applying to content writing jobs or simple SEO audits. The next is AI automation. It's growing rapidly, but there's a lot of scams and pitfalls along the way. And I believe pretty soon every company will be using AI in some sort. So at some point it may lose its allure, but I still think it's a decent niche right now to get into as a freelancer. Some good ways you could sell AI automation is with basic chatbot setups, content creation, lead gen or auto replies, and testimonial gathering. You learn these pretty quickly by just getting a make.com or N8N subscription and then just watching YouTube tutorials about how to set up basic automation and flows. A key here is going to be learning how to pull data from a Google Sheet and then play with that data using ChatGPT or other LLM. This is probably going to be your bread and butter when selling AI automation. The third one is lead gen. Lead gen is a skill that can be learned quite quickly through experience and some money, depending on the type of lead gen you're doing. For example, you can learn a lot about cold calling by just cold calling 50 people every day and taking notes on what worked and what didn't work and developing your own cold calling script. After some experience and success, calling businesses to sell them something becomes easier, and you'll learn a lot about marketing and sales along the way. Cold email is another option and helps you avoid further human interaction. You can automate most of this, but you probably have to use some third-party apps to help save you time and do things like scraping contact information from websites and then setting up automated customized cold email to pitch these people services. Another primary way of lead gen is with Google Ads or Meta Ads. This probably has the highest cost barrier to get into. I mean, the way I got into Google Ads is I was doing rank and rent, and I just ended up wasting like 2 to 3K finding out what works, A/B testing ads. Then from that point, I started offering my own Google Ads services to clients on Upwork. I think there are probably better ways, but PPC, Google Ads, etc., their returns may not be as good as they were in the past, but I still think it's a viable option to sell as a freelancer. The 2 tips I take away from that with Google Ads is that spend your own money, learn Google Ads, and 2, if your client wants to do Google Ads or Meta Ads, make sure they have a high enough budget. A low budget in Google Ads gets you nothing but wasted money. You're competing with larger companies who have a much larger budget, who are spending 5K, 10K a month plus on ads. You're never going to beat them. So if your client's budget is under 5K, I wouldn't recommend selling Google Ads. The fourth way is probably the most creative way to make money as a freelancer. This involves video editing, both long and short. I think this area will still be needed no matter how much AI has an impact, especially long form, live streaming content. The more content you create, the stronger your connection is with your clients and audience. So I think the key with this is learning basic editing skills and getting a basic understanding of the algorithms for each of these platforms, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. You can learn this by starting your own YouTube channel. There's plenty of content out there teaching you how to get started in one of these editing platforms. I think I started on Shotcut, and then I used DaVinci Resolve from there. Tutorials for these apps are everywhere online. You start learning how to use these apps, learning how to edit, learning how to speed up editing, and then you could sell these services to clients who want some video editing help. The fifth and final way is social media marketing. Right out the gate, this is probably the area that I'm least familiar with, and many people in this space are moving over to an AI agency, but I still think companies will always need social media marketing and management. No matter what happens with AI, having a marketing company to manage your social media is still going to be key, and will always help business owners free up their time and bring in more leads. To learn this, I would follow YouTubers like James Smith, who teaches short-form content, as well as Ed Lawrence, who teaches long-form content on YouTube. With that, you can learn the basics and start putting out content and learning what gets views and what doesn't. I still see many social media marketing jobs on Upwork every day. Now the final phase is selling these services. There are 4 main ways to sell them. First is cold email. Second is freelancer sites like Upwork and Fiverr. 3 is cold calling, and 4 is in-person selling. I think cold email can bring you the most amount of leads the quickest, but it is a volume game, so you do have to learn how to create engaging copy, personalizing emails, and getting those leads to convert. The second way is freelancer sites like Upwork. This works, but it does take time. However, once you build enough credibility, leads come to you, and you'll basically never be looking for leads going forward after about the first year on Upwork. Third is cold calling, and it takes quite a bit of guts, but with enough time and experience, you can do quite well with this as well. Be prepared for flaking and be ready to get hung up on a lot. The fourth is in-person selling. I see people do quite well with walking into a car dealership or something like that and pitching services like video editing or social media marketing. This still works. Again, it does take guts and confidence, but I think this is still a viable option, especially when everyone's getting spammed with emails and calls these days. Once you start selling the services, you'll get your first client and you'll be blown away, but be prepared to work very, very hard after that to make your product better and better and getting better and better at selling it. I hope this has been insightful, guys. If you're interested in doing Upwork, I recommend checking out this video on the 3 levels of Upwork, how quickly you can take to do well in Upwork, and what to expect at each level. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.